Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my recommendations for the Vampire Diaries Readathon. If you do not know what I'm talking about, please go and check out my announcement video, which will be down in the description. But the readathon has 10 prompts, which I realise some of them might be harder to pick books than others. So I wanted to bring you a full recommendations video. I'll be giving you at least 3 recommendations per prompt. For that reason, I'm not going to be pulling out all of the books from my shelves because we would be here a very long time and I would be putting books back forever. So I will just be popping them up on the screen. I hope that's okay. So the first prompt is to read a book with a supernatural element. So you can take this any way you wish. We can do vampires, werewolves, witches, sneak peek for my TBR, I'm doing angels, ghosts, I can't think of what else. What else counts? I don't even know. Vampires, werewolves, witches, angels, ghosts, demons, all that good stuff. You know, shadow hunters. Let's go Cassandra Clare. Any of the Cassandra Clares would work for this, which is actually not on my recommendations. So my first recommendation is actually right here. It would be Crave by Tracy Wolff. This is a supernatural school. It would also work for another prompt, where our main character has to go after her parents die and her uncle is the head teacher, but she doesn't know it's a supernatural school. That would be my first recommendation. Next up would be The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. This is a modern classic and it is a ghost story. It's also pretty short, easy to get through. But yeah, The Woman in Black, classic ghost story. And then I was also thinking of Dark Visions by L.J. Smith. This is a bit of an obscure one and I felt like recommending it because it's a long book. But this one we have a mix of supernatural characters, a mix of supernatural elements, and it's also 3 kind of novellas put in one. So it's a chunker, it's like 600 pages. So it'd be really good for points. Next up we have Featuring a Friendship. I see it in other readathons, I always think this one's hard, but then when I actually came to pick out books, I was trying to limit myself. So the first one I want to talk about is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett, which is actually just down here. And this is a dystopian fantasy-ish book where a group of girls, when they are in their 16th year, they go out to live in the woods with the rest of the girls in that season, and they have to rid themselves of magic before coming back and being betrothed to a man in town. Really, it's quite wild. It's hard to describe it in a few sentences, but all of the girls go off together and I'm counting it as a friendship-driven story. Next up, I have The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This is a weird one, and I don't know why it's just in my brain so much, but if you're wanting to stick to like spooky vampire-ish themes, this book doesn't have vampires, but it's definitely a horror, and that's why I felt like it was worth it. It's also a very easy read. Talking to the Dead. These are books that get far too much into torture and potentially demons. It's wild, but it's definitely friendship based. And the next one I was thinking of is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This is a horror. Clearly, my best friend is in the title. It counts. Next up, we have The Mystic Falls High School, which is to read a book with a school setting. The first one I've gone for is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. That is a vampire school. What more do you need to know? It would fit the school setting and it would also fit if you're sticking to vampire books. And then also thinking of Goodbye Perfect by Sarah Bernard. I love this book, and this is a YA contemporary based on 2 girls doing their GCSEs. Again, this would also count as friendship. And one of the girls was the perfect A-star, perfect student until a crush on a teacher gets involved. And next up I've gone for You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is another YA contemporary. Rachel Lynn Solomon has started writing adult romance in the recent years, but started off in YA contemporaries. And this is about 2 twins. Their mom has Huntington's and they are becoming 18 years old and are deciding whether they want to do the test to see if they have the gene and will likely be affected. But it is set mostly in school. Next up, we have The Salvatore Boarding House, a book with a historical element. So the first one I'm going for is not what you'd first think for this prompt. I'm going to say Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is not so much history, but is definitely historical, as it was set in the, what, 70s, 80s? I should probably have checked that before filming this, but it was definitely set in history. Like recent history, but history, so I would let it count. More really historically founded, we have Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. This is potentially my favourite ever historical fiction. This is about an overlapping story of two 17 to 18-year-old girls and the French Revolution. So definitely historical, but it's my favourite ever. And then I'm also thinking of Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I only read this one because I was obsessed with the movie with Robert Pattinson, but the book is fantastic and it is based in the circus around the time of the Great Depression, so definitely historical. Next up, The Lockwood Mansion. This is the one I think you're going to need no help on because it's to read a popular book. But if you would like my recommendations for popular books, I will go for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Definitely worth the hype. A bit of a polarizing book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I think it's fantastic. A lot of people think it's pure trash, but it's definitely popular. And then another one that's a little bit not popular right now, but was very popular, is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I really love that book and I would definitely recommend it. Next up, Wickery Bridge is to read a thriller. So some thrillers I'm going to recommend. I won't say too much about the plot of them. We've got The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which is a mixed media, which is a thriller, mystery thriller told mostly through emails. We then have Sweet Pea by CJ Scoose, which is kind of a disturbing graphic thriller where the main character might be slightly psychotic and starts off dismembering a man. We'll just say dismembering. I don't know, I think that's funny. And then next we have My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This is more of a domestic thriller with a husband and wife who have a bit of a secret that they like to take young women and kill them. Sorry if I've moved ever so slightly. My camera battery just died. Like, how rude is that? I think I have moved quite a lot. I'm so sorry. So next up we have The Mystic Falls Cemetery, and that's to read a book with a dark cover. So the first one I'll recommend is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This could work for many other things. School setting, popular book, featuring a friendship. This is set at Yale University and it's about these secret societies, but the cover is definitely dark. We then have Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. This is a fantasy romance, pretty smutty. It's about the bargainer who will make deals with you, well, bargains with you, and you will owe him. That's all I'll say there. And then I've also gone with Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. If you don't want to read anything too dark in content, Starry Eyes has a dark cover. It's more purple, but it's got like a camping scene. It's quite dark, and this is potentially my favourite ever YA contemporary, so would definitely recommend. Next up, this one, again, I could have gone with so many things, but The Gilbert House is to read a romance. So I would like to recommend The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. If you've not been following with the read-along of those 3 books, I just absolutely love the series. I'm also going to suggest The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I absolutely loved this one. Again, it would count as popular. It's just such an easy, fun time. It's enemies to lovers, and I just think it's great. If you want to stick with more vampiric themes, yeah, that's the word. I don't even know how you would say that word. I can see it written down in my head. Go with From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I think it's fantastic. The romance in it is not the main storyline, which is why I think this might be great for some readers, especially if romance isn't your #1 like genre. The romance isn't that big in comparison to the whole book, and I just think it's fantastic. Next up, the one I think you will want my recommendations for is The Forbes House, which is to read a book with a party. You can stretch party as much as you want. So my first recommendation is going to be Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the start of the 3-book trilogy, which is set around the giant party of Caraval, which is when they go to like an island and it's like however many days of a party that's actually more of a mystery fantastical story. But I'd say it counts. Then I'd like to suggest any of the Bridgerton books, but let's just say The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. There are a lot of parties in this. There are a lot of societal gatherings with the debutantes, and it counts. And then I'd also like to go for The Female of the Species by Mindy McGuinness. This is a YA contemporary, and in this book they go for a few parties. Like literally gatherings in an abandoned church with alcohol and music. It's a party. You could do many things. You could do Twilight because they go to prom. You could do The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. They go to a wedding. Four Aunties in a Wedding, Jessie Sutanto. Anything with a wedding. is gonna count because there's a party. I feel like that one seems the most restrictive, but if you have a wide range of what could have a party in it, if you start with one that's probably got a wedding in it, if you're lost, you might find a party. And then finally, the one that again you probably don't need from me is Mystic Falls, Read a Vampire Book. I've just realised I put the same book on here twice because I was trying not to spoil it, but I've suggested From Blood and Ash as a vampire book. So that one again. Glass Houses by Rachel Kane and any of the Morganville vampire series. I think they're fantastic. It's such cheesy vampireness. I love it. We could clearly say Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I haven't actually read that one yet, but I've heard fantastic things. And another one I've read and loved, if you're not massively into vampire books, read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. It's really, really good. Well, in my opinion, it's got polarizing views. But the vampire story in that isn't that important, really. It's in the title and it happens, but it's not the most important thing about that book. So I would recommend that one. Right, that is all the recommendations I'm going to give. I will be uploading a TBR video for the readathon in a week or so. If you have any recommendations for these prompts that you feel like people might miss, please do leave them down in the comments. What I might do is start a pinned comment of anyone else's recommendations that I think are really good, like I've also read and enjoyed, so I might do that. But yeah, that is all I have time for today. Thank you very, very much for watching. I really do hope you take part in the readathon, but I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!